welcome back to Andertons, and we're at NAMM. It's 2025, and we've been ushered into this little room, which I think they would normally use for ticket sales or something at the NAMM show, because Drew and Michael and some other members of the team behind the camera here have brought down a very special collection of amplifiers. You'll be familiar with the name Dumble. Everybody's familiar with the name, right? Yeah. Probably the most mysterious, famous amp brand ever. But I tell you what you won't be familiar with, because a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of guitar players in the world will have ever actually got to play one of these. You won't be familiar with what they sound like. I'm certainly not in the flesh anyway. Do you want to tell us why we're here, Drew?
Sure. Well, Mr. Dumble built about 300 amps, modified some Fenders and Marshalls, and he generally built them for an artist and gauged their playing and helped them get the tone that they were looking for. He looked at it as giving them an easel with paint to paint with, so he wanted to increase their playing ability, their inspiration, by giving them something that's going to inspire them. So that was what he was all about. He loved giving an artist that he thought had talent or was promising, give them a tool to work with that's going to enhance their playing and encourage them moving forward, like Stevie Ray, for example. He picked the right one for that. But so he was good at doing that. His ear was incredible. He had the best ear in the business, they say. And he was a math genius and just a beautiful guy in every way. Spiritually, brilliant guy. And his passion was building these amps. He could have invented a cure for cancer if he would have set his mind to it. But this is what he chose to do. So basically, we come in with this scene is we're the group that we put together to carry on the legacy. We're his closest people, and his trusted people, and he introduced me to his family years ago, and he always said, you handle things if something happens. When unfortunately 3 years ago he passed, so working with his family and Matt Swanson and then Michael Doyle, we have to create something to continue with the brand. So in doing that, we have built a couple of amplifiers, and it was very challenging because to have something and call it Dumble, to put his name on it, it was a very challenging situation. We got a friend of Mr. Dumble's that's a tech that used to work with Mr. Dumble, trusted guy, and another friend, and together we have a little team that's trying to stick to the brand, truly stick to it in every way. It takes a long time for each one of these to be built, and so we feel we're kind of preserving the legacy and continuing the legacy, and so we brought them here to let people know that we're doing this legitimately, that we're asked by Mr. Dumble and the family to continue doing it. And why don't you elaborate on that, Michael?
Yeah. Well, you said we're preserving the legacy. It's quite convenient, actually, that the name of the company is the Dumble Preservation Society.
That sounds like a Michael Caine film, doesn't it? Is that from the Italian joke?
I know, that's what I was thinking exactly.
Brilliant name.
Going to make a scene out of that one. But yes, we're here to preserve his legacy, and we're here at NAMM because we wanted to celebrate it, because as you said, even you haven't ever played one, heard one.
This is the crazy thing, right?
Yeah, and so
here we are. Clones, but not a real one.
This is the real deal, and it's. I met Dumble for the first time 40 years ago when I first came to America, and he lived down the street from me, and we hung out a bit, and he ended up modifying my Marshall Major.
Yeah, tell us about some of the amps in the room, Michael.
Well, that particular one, he came to my house one day because I was a Marshall fan, and I'm still, of course. And he said, Michael, have you got any good Marshalls lately? And I said, well, I got a couple of Marshall Majors, which is rare in itself. Yeah. And he says to me, well, can I borrow one and to modify it? And I thought, well, on the one hand, yes, absolutely, but no, I don't have $100,000 to pay you. so he said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll do a trade, right? I'll modify the amplifier, and you can photograph all of my amplifiers as a by way of a trade. And so that's sort of where these photographs came from.
These are iconic, right? I've seen this photo hundreds of times. I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
I never realised that you photographed all these.
Yeah, did all that. Yeah, that was another.
He was
another
very fussy
story.
and didn't like his photos being taken, but he trusted Michael to do it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
And then he had the amplifier for, long story short, he had it for 25 years before I got it back. And because I'd heard all the legends about if you phone me up, then you go to the bottom of the list of getting stuff done.
That
was a truism, yeah. And so I never wanted to phone him up and upset him, because I valued his friendship so much more than even the amplifier. I didn't want to upset him, so that's why it took 25 years. But it was worth the wait.
What's the one behind you?
This is called Woody. So this is a small special. It's 50 watts. And it's not channel switching. As an overdrive special, it's got 2 specific channels that you can switch it to overdrive. This one does have a master volume. This is a preamp gain and the main volume. This is kind of a legendary amp. Most of Dumble's artists have used this, either recorded with it, used it on stage, backstage. This is seen, I personally have taken this around to several artists. Santana used it. And so this is a special amp. This is kind of a treasure. He never really finished it, obviously, and he kind of liked it like that, and it created a vibe in the name Woody. So this is a really sweet, warm-sounding amplifier. It does overdrive if you crank the preamp, but as it is, it just sounds really warm. One of the things that became a legendary with Mr. Dumble was, to put a pedal in front, a overdrive pedal or a distortion pedal, and make an amp, a clean amp overdrive, was, interesting. Everybody wanted that, but the true Dumble sound is the clean. Wow. And you can't get the warm, clean, lush sound out of most amps, and compared to a Dumble. So he had both. So his overdrive was legendary, but his clean, warm, chimey sound was something you can really only get out of a Dumble. And these all do that.
I mean, I know this is the best thing ever. Pete is going to be our nominated guitar player in here. I can see the sweat dripping down his face here. But before we switch over to Pete, I mean, is there ever, look at this, is crazy. Tell us about, there's 3 or 4 amps now we've got to talk about. Just a couple of minutes on each one.
Mr. Dumble was really fond of Stevie Ray Vaughan. They had a great relationship. So after Stevie Ray played one of Dumble's amps at Jackson Brown's studio for the first record, Mr. Dumble built him 2 steel string singers, which are high wattage amps, which David Lindley played a lap steel, so it had to have more watts to get the sound out in a bigger way. So that's how the steel string singer got created. This is actually a Dumble special that he converted when Stevie's amps got stolen. We have correspondence between the 2 of them. So he converted this to a steel string singer and wrote Steel String Singer on the back and sent this to Stevie Ray to use. He used it for a little less than a year, maybe around a year, until he recovered his 2 amps. So this was on the road with Stevie Ray. This was very sentimental to Mr. Dumble. This was something really special to him, to cherish the memory that he had of Stevie Ray.
The artists that are connected with Mr. Dumble are obviously, just reads like a who's who of everyone. You were saying before that obviously Mr. Dumble would be able to almost telepathically kind of go, this is what I need to do.
Yes.
And the artist would be going, no, I don't think that's what I want. But he'd go, no, this is what you want.
And he'd say, you'll discover it eventually. And they would. You had to trust his opinion and his judgment that it's going to be okay. This is what you need. You're going to have to trust me. And people respected him so much, say, okay, we'll try it. And usually it was, rarely did they come back for adjustment.
You were saying there was one guitar player that just wanted, just give me the amp.
Well, that's Eric, Eric Clapton. There was a 310 Bandmaster that Mr. Dumble did in black Tolex, and it wasn't that modified. It was basically an overbuilt classic 59 310 Fender Bandmaster. It had a sweet spot. It sounded great. But when he plugged Eric through several things, when Eric plugged into that, he goes, okay, I want this.
I want that one, yeah.
But it was Mr. Dumble's. And so Mr. Dumble said, okay, well, that's fine. I understand what you want. I'll build you one. And so Eric's like, well, I'll just take this one. And so he ended up getting one quick because Mr. Dumble really respected him, and they had a good relationship and loved Eric. I'm sure Eric loved Mr. Dumble, but so he ended up with one, but not that one.
Right. Okay. So he stood his ground, wouldn't let him have that one.
Yeah.
This one, and this one, and then the one in between, I guess, and then we're
so this is the first overdrive special that Mr. Dumble made. It's this one in the picture that Michael took.
Yeah.
It's also this one. So this is an early version of what Mr. Dumble did. Well, it's the first one. This is an Altec speaker. This is 50 watts. And it sounds fantastic even now, years later. It was built in the early 70s. So this is our continuation, these two actually. And this is based off a pretty basic Dumble. It's not that complicated. It has Hot Rubber Monkey, but it doesn't have as much later development that he came up with. It doesn't have Skyline EQ. So this is a 6L6 valve tube amp, and this is an EL34. So we built these two recently, and they sound a little bit differently, and you'll be able to tell this sounds similar to this, but no two sound the same. So this, by the way, is Robin Ford's amp.
Oh.
So Mr. Dumble built 2 amps for Robin Ford, and when Robin moved to Nashville, Mr. Dumble called my partner Matt Swanson right there and said, Matt, you're buying this amp. He didn't ask him. And so Matt goes, okay. So they met with Robin and Mr. Dumble, and they worked out a deal. And so Mr. Dumble wanted the amp to be with Matt, no one else. So there it is.
That is probably the only one I've seen in the flesh with when Robin has done stuff for Andertons, just in clinics and stuff. The one time he did, he just had it. I couldn't believe it. He just had it shipped by FedEx in a flight case to Andertons, and we were just like, and this is, we're talking. These are one of these amps where it's hard to put a price on it. People would, it's either priceless or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And we were just like, don't you worry. And he's like, it's a tool. It's the amp and it's just like, I don't know how some artists have that sort of, but I guess for an artist like Robin, it is a tool. It's the amp he uses to make his guitar loud. It's his tool.
He was very special to Mr. Dumble, treasured Robin, and they had a great relationship. And we invited Robin. He's in UK now, and he couldn't make it, but yeah, he, this was his tool, and they've held up on the road and for all these years, and that's one of the things Mr. Dumble's were built to not break and to last. Oh. So.
I mean, you got a couple more here as well. Before Pete plays them, I mean, I guess we'll have to see what the future holds. But I guess your intention is somehow to ensure that the legacy endures by continuing to produce replicas of his old designs. Is that the intention?
I wouldn't call them replicas. I would call it continuation.
Right. Okay.
So as close to using his specs as possible. Very time consuming, and built by hand for long periods of time to get one to where we're happy with it. But yeah, to a certain degree, we're not sure. We're here to get some feedback and to share the Dumble legacy with everybody. So we're not clear on where it's going, but so far we've got really positive feedback, and people have enjoyed the new amps, the old amps, and just the whole Dumble vibe.
Again, I'm sure the comment section here will be in agreement with me, but I mean, it's what a wonderful thing you're doing, because it's just, I can't imagine it, that there are so many legendary figures in the music industry that have built guitars and amps and pedals over the time, and obviously all things come to an end at some point. But if you have someone super passionate about continuing that on, players of new generations will get to experience things like this that I think it's just wonderful what you're doing. So
thank you. Yeah, it's a labor of love and with respect and to Mr. Dumble. So
yeah.
we're proud of what we've done. So if you
We got
if
to
you-
plug in now.
you
'Cause
ready?
yeah, no pressure, Pete. But no, it's fine. Look, I'd love to try one as well. It's just like half of me's afraid, and then the other half of me just sort of goes, look, this is everybody wants to jump in a Formula One car at some point in their life, don't they? It's just like this is what we're about to do. Hopefully, I won't crash it and kill everyone.
Part of the mystique with Mr. Dumble, you'd have to audition to be
I've heard
in certain
this,
cases,
yeah.
and a lot of guys would freeze up going into Dumble's house and with Dumble with all the amps. There were great players that
Yeah.
were like didn't want to play, and Dumble was a great player.
Was he?
And so he would want to jam with everybody to see what they're all about. He could tell by playing with them. So that was part of the tradition of Mr. Dumble. You
Amazing.
had to play.
I think we had Kenny Wayne Shepherd on for a while. He was pretty close, wasn't he?
He's
And
a
he
dear
would
friend of Mr. Dumble's,
Yeah,
and,
so-
and Mr. Dumble built a lot of great amps for
Yeah.
Kenny Wayne. He's
Yeah.
a great player and great guy, so that was a really good relationship. Mr. Dumble used to get excited about when he met Kenny Wayne. I'm going to do this for him. And that was his passion. He wanted people to express themselves the best they can, and that's where he came in. So,
Man, it's been a pleasure to meet
Lee,
you. Thank you again,
pleasure.
Michael, for making the introduction.
Much appreciated.
We better hear these amps. Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks, everybody. Okay. See you later.